This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is May 6th, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host Luke Sylvia. Luke, that's all I got.
Yeah, but pretty much what I got. I just sucks, man. It really does. And I'll say this: my heart was fully prepped and ready to lose this Game 7 in Cleveland, fully. What my heart was not prepared for was an 18-point lead, only to be lost completely and lose by double digits. My heart was not prepared for that. That made it sting. It would it have sucked if the season ended today regardless? Yes. But you get up by 18 and then you lose by double digits, and that's a whole other story. That hurt. That hurt a lot.
Yeah, when they take the 18-point lead, like midway through the second, and then the deficit started to dwindle a little bit, like it would go to 14, then back to 16, and we had a ton of people here at the house, so if you're at the watch party on Wall Street, you recognize I was not there. We had my son's second birthday, and just decided that I'm gonna be here for my kid's birthday instead of going to the watch party, which was a tough decision, for me. Transparently, I was glad to be here, but the fact that I couldn't be in both places really sucked. But we had a ton of people here, and I kept telling everybody, like, if we can get it to 20 or 22 before the half and be up 18 or 19 at the half,
yeah,
I'll be feeling really good, just given the way like the emotions of this series have gone. But then I was like, you cannot let them get it to 10. And ultimately, Cleveland does get it to 10, the 10-point deficit going into the half. And then that third quarter where you're outscored 33-15, you're outscored by 18 in that third quarter because the offense just really evaporated. It was offensive rebounds by Cleveland. It was turnovers from the Magic. It was the inability to knock down shots, and all of the confidence that it felt like this team had built up through game 3, 4, 5, and 6. The 3 games that you win at home. You're right there all game 5. You're right there at the end. You just fall a couple of plays short. I felt like all of the confidence that we had built up over those last few games, that third quarter hits, and you feel like you're right back to games 1 and 2, where the offense is dreadful. It really felt helpless, and the Magic just never able to make that big push to make this a game. Every time they started to, like the last couple of minutes, like you tweeted out, like Donovan Mitchell hits a big 3, game feels like it's over. Magic get a bucket. Jalen Suggs gets a steal. The Magic get to the free throw line. And it's like, okay, well, it's a 7-point game. We've got the ball. Okay, just score. And now it's going to be a 5-point game. And then it's a 7, 8, 9-point game. And then Garland hits a 3 to make an 11-point game. To me, the Garland 3 is where it really felt over with a couple of minutes left. See Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, starting to embrace. And it was like, man, like the offense, we could just have go on a crazy run the next couple of minutes. We've seen the Magic do that at times this year. But just given all the circumstances and the way that this game had gone and the way that this series had gone, the hope was pretty much gone for me, around the, 2-3 minute mark when this team was down pretty much by double digits. And I, like you, I had emotionally and mentally prepared myself for a loss. Up 18, your mind starts to get a little bit crazy. You're like, if we can get this lead to 22 or 25, then at that point, there's no way we lose, right? But as soon as we got that 18-point lead, Cleveland starts to go on their run. It's like that opportunity to really open this game all the way up was there for just a split second, and Cleveland was able to close the gap pretty quickly there to end the second half. What really got me was seeing how emotional Jalen Suggs was after the game, being consoled by Goga Bitadze. And you could see Paolo, I think it was maybe it was a Jalen Suggs free throw late in the game. You saw Paolo just like breathing really heavily, not like gassed heavily, but that kind of breathing heavily where you're trying to almost calm yourself down a bit. Like you could tell that these guys knew that the game was getting away from them, that the series was ending, that their season was coming to an end. And seeing those guys, process those emotions in real time was really tough. And then to see, Franz just as dejected as I've ever seen him in that post-game conference. I know we're going to talk about how these guys have performed individually in this game and in this series, but that was the hardest part for me. Like walking around this evening before we started to record, I was like, I feel like I've just been dumped. Like I feel like this awesome relationship that I've really enjoyed has now just come to this abrupt end, and I wasn't really ready for it to end. Mm-hmm. And even though down 3-2, you knew it could have been over game 6. You know it obviously could have been over in game 7, and we've all been talking ourselves into like, hey, we're just playing with house money. Whatever happens, we're going to be fine. I do think that helped soften the blow of this loss for me in particular, but fully realizing that, hey, there's a good opportunity that 5.5 months from now, when the next season starts up, this roster isn't going to look the same. And, this group, you might get another good group, but it's not going to be necessarily the same as this group, right? Like this team had a super special chemistry about it. And the fact that this season, which maybe this is a hot take, this is my favorite season ever. Like, yes, 2009, 2010, we've talked about being young and naive and not really fully appreciating those runs in the moment. Us watching all, what is it now, 89 games of this regular season here, or regular season and into the playoffs, like just living and dying for this team each and every day. It was just a super special team, really, really fun season, and it sucks that it ended this way.
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks because this season was the lowest the expectations will ever be. We were kind of like, you talk about when we were young, and obviously these are different scenarios, but like we didn't fully appreciate it because we were young. The team was pretty much good since we really started paying attention closely to Magic basketball. And so that played a part. But this season, the team is young, and there's a bit of like innocence to being a fan of a really young team because there aren't expectations, and everything really past just making the playoffs was gravy. And moving forward, that's not going to be the case. Moving forward, gravy might be making the Eastern Conference Finals next year, right? Oh, we want to win a series, and then we might get greedy and maybe set the bar, depending on obviously the offseason, but like, which we'll talk about, maybe next episode or something, as far as like full emotions. But yeah, it's just like, depending on how your offseason goes next year, you might say like the gravy part of this is like Eastern Conference Finals because we improved the roster. You're more seasoned. You could have won a round this year. And there's no reason to think that maybe you couldn't win 2 rounds, right? Next year. You're going to lose the innocence of the fan base next year. We've been to the playoffs. We've tasted it. We made it all the way to a game 7 in round 1 against a team that has a star who has been to the playoffs 7 times. Like that's a seasoned star to have, and meanwhile ours are 22 and 21. So, and it sucks. I really wish that what I could be talking about tonight is the stat that I had our guy Brandon Jones look up from Orlando Magic Analytics. I texted him this morning and I was like, hey Brandon, any way you can find out who is the youngest team to come back from a 2-0 deficit in the playoffs at any round. and he looked it up. And he said if the Magic were to win Game 7, they would have been the second youngest team all time and the first since the 1977 Portland Trailblazers. And I think the difference was like days or something and year and like the average age of the team. So the Magic would have, been able to do that. Wish that was the case tonight as we record this, but it's not. But it just goes to show you, man, that this team is so young, doing such unprecedented things, and was sat close to getting out of the first round and just continuing to set these historic marks. So super proud of this team. Outcome wasn't as we wanted. It kind of reminded me of last game in Orlando, where Cleveland couldn't hit a shot in the first half. The Magic were shooting pretty well. And then the second half, the roles reversed. Because last game, I believe, Cleveland still shot like mid 40% in the second half from three. And did much of the same today. And today they shot 46% in the second half. And obviously last game they had only made one three at halftime. And then in this game it was kind of similar. They had only made two going into halftime. You had a 10-point lead today. And that third quarter obviously was the kicker. But similar, but it just goes to show you that games can bounce many different ways. And the shooting was pretty similar from this game and last game. The Magic difference was the Magic won last game by 6. Today, they lose by 12.
And instead of becoming the youngest team since '77 to come back from a 2-0 deficit, they make history by giving up the biggest lead in the history of Game 7. Like nobody's ever lost a Game 7, being up 18 points.
That's crazy.
But it's there's a lot of nuance and that goes into those facts. Obviously, this series ultimately came down to exactly what we thought it was going to come down to, which was shooting. I think the major difference, apart from the Magic being home Game 6 and being away in Game 7, is that in the second half of Game 6, Donovan didn't really have anybody else for Cleveland to step up. And in this second half, Game 7, it was Max Strus. It was Evan Mobley making plays. It was Darius Garland, obviously, with the big three at the end. So role players play better at home in the playoffs. We've been talking about that, all throughout this series. And I don't want to make too much of a fuss about this, but you go back to that game, the first week of April, against Charlotte, a game that you obviously should have won. You win that game and you have home court advantage. I think, we've talked about this in other pods throughout this series, that I'm convinced that this series really just came down to the team that had more home games. The road team did not win a single game in this series, so obviously that's easy to say now, in hindsight. I genuinely believe you give the Magic a Game 7 at home, and the crowd just wills them to a win, especially when you look at the way that guys like Jalen and Franz played at home versus the road.
You get up 18 at home, for instance, you're not losing that lead, man. There's just no way. Like the crowd, like you said, really would be the difference. But also just like the comfortability, and I think there's a calmness to obviously being at home, knowing, hey, if I make this shot, the arena's going to go nuts. They've got our back. Absolutely played a part. I don't think that's outlandish to say at all. Magic, win a couple of those, even one of those games down the stretch that you lost in the regular season, and this is a different conversation. Genuinely, I give the Magic Game 7 at home and you win the series, but it's nothing to hang our head about at all. But man, I just really Paolo Banchero, obviously Franz Wagner had some times where he obviously just carried the team too, right? In this series, they both showed super encouraging flashes, but Paolo Banchero in this game, man, as far as the stats go, yes, you wish that you had a win at the end of it. Donovan Mitchell and him had a very similar shooting game. defenses were heavily focused on Donovan Mitchell, on Paolo Banchero, as Donovan Mitchell shoots 11 of 27 from the field, while Paolo shoots 10 of 28 from the field. Neither good from the field efficiency wise, but where they were, Donovan Mitchell 17 free throw attempts, makes 15. Paolo Banchero 18 attempts, makes 15 of them. Paolo 3 of 6 from 3. He just was incredible, and 16 rebounds. I don't know what his career high is, but that might be it. In rebounds, and I'm gonna look that up really quick actually. So man, Paolo Banchero is awesome. It is nice to see that. So he tied his career high, I think, in rebounds today. His other one was like November of his first season, I believe. He had 16 in a game against the Kings. So 16 in this one. Hats off to Paolo Banchero. You want to go into a series with a young player thinking like, how is he going to perform? I predicted that there would be a couple 4 for 16 performances from the field, and there wouldn't have been any shame. Like, he wouldn't do that, and I'd be like, oh, I'm out on Paolo Banchero. I just expected it because he's young. He's had some games like that in the regular season where he just forces it, can't get it going. He very much stepped up to the call in this game, in this series. But for him to go out and have as many 30-plus point performances as he had in this series at 21 years old is unheard of. Literally, like a very historic conversation to have for him and group that he's a part of now. So awesome job by him. Shot wasn't falling, but he was getting to the free throw line, hitting threes, 3 of 6, like I said. I still can't get over 16 rebounds. We talked about it on the last pod, I think. It was technically like a post-game live 6-man show hybrid episode, but I talked about like rebounds are very much an effort thing if you're like 6'10" or taller. Like if you're a guy that generally can play around the rim. It's different if you're on the perimeter, like a guard, because you're not in the position to get rebounds a lot of the time. But Paolo Banchero, just like pure effort, goes out valiantly in this playoff series. So again, hats off to him. He was nothing short of incredible for us.
Yeah, the lead tweeted out players under 22 to average 25 plus points per game, 8 plus rebounds over a 7-game playoff stretch. LeBron James in 2006, Paolo Banchero 2024. Only guys in NBA history to do that. And Paolo finishes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
He finishes the series 27 points, 8.6 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 45.6% from the floor, 40% from behind the arc. Just that unreal.
That's what you call a playoff riser, by the way. He is going to be a player that will win you single-handedly a series because he's already won us. He won us games, and the Magic win today. I think it's safe to say, like, aside from the one performance where he had 9 points, he very much won you the series. By the way, to average 27 points in a series and where you scored 9 points in one of those games, that's insane. That's insane. You're talking about at that point, like, he could have easily been averaging like 29, 30, 31 points in this series if he didn't have that 9-point game, just by having like a mediocre one. So, man, I can't believe how awesome he was.
We've been saying it all year, but he's a superstar. Jamal Mosley talked about it after the game, how he's an all-star, how he should be all-NBA. We'll find out, in a week or a couple of weeks if that's going to happen. I do think that's not super likely. Not that he's not deserving, but just given the amount of, or the lack of, national attention the Magic have gotten this year, I just don't think enough people have been talking about Paolo to really push that narrative forward. Yeah. But he was just truly unbelievable. I just read the numbers here. Playoff riser, everything that you could ask for. Like, anybody that had any doubts about Paolo Banchero heading into this series, hopefully those have all been erased.
I thought there was something interesting on the broadcast said today, Jonathan. I believe it was JJ Redick made a point about Jalen Suggs is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And that was cool, and we know that, but it's cool to hear somebody say that. But then Mike Breen says something, and maybe he doesn't know anything, but I think that he does. He said something to the effect of, agreed with JJ, and said something to the effect of, he is on quite a few all defense ballots, all NBA defense ballots. He was like, those haven't been released yet, but he's been on quite a few. And it just made it sound like, what do you know, Mike Breen?
Wow.
So I think that obviously we'll find that out soon. I don't know when that is, but hopefully it's coming up soon, sometime here, maybe during the playoffs, obviously.
The NBA announced this afternoon that I think it's this week they're announcing like Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. Nice. So it should be either this week or probably next week. Historically, it's like the second week of May or the third week of May, somewhere in there. So it really shouldn't be that long. But if you just a few weeks ago, when all of the media personalities had to submit their ballots, if you listen to any of the number of podcasts, Jalen Suggs was on basically everybody's ballot. So to me, he's a lock. He should be a lock. Mm-hmm. I think we definitely can expect that, and we'll be looking forward to celebrating Jalen Suggs' accomplishment there. Did just want to point out, some stats from this game. Magic shoot 33% from the floor, 32% from behind the arc. Not really a surprise. Shooting that way over the course of a 48-minute game, you're really not going to win. 26 of 30 from the free throw line, definitely a big boost in helping keep the Magic in this game. The Magic committed 17 turnovers to Cleveland's 14. Cleveland shot 44.2% from the floor and 33% from behind the arc, and they make 30 of 36 free throws. So saw a lot of Cleveland fans complaining about the officiating in this game. It's like, how mad can you really be when you shoot 36 free throws in a game? They committed 23 personal fouls, and the Magic committed 32. So Jamal Mosley talked about defending without fouling, rebounding at times, taking care of the ball. Those were three areas, and where we talk about level of detail and the margin for error being so small for this team, especially when the thing that you cannot really control is your ability to knock down shots. One of the silver linings of this series and losing this series, and we talked about whoever our matchup was going to be heading into the postseason, even if the Magic get their teeth knocked in a first-round series, they should have come away from that series having all of their flaws exposed. And I do think we all knew what they were heading into this series, but I think they were on full display. The lack of shooting, the lack of playmaking and offensive organization outside of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Whenever somebody is asked to do that outside of those guys, it doesn't go particularly well. So I think we all would agree that you need another creator within the offense. You need to bring in some shooters as well. Franz Wagner today, I think we can have this conversation. 6 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, a 666 stat line.
Wolf.
Do with that with what you will. Not a good omen by any means. Was 1 of 15 from the floor. I don't think it's an exaggeration that this is one of Franz Wagner's worst games of his NBA career. Credit to Cleveland. They were doing a good job of making it tough on him, but the shots just were not falling today. And I think bringing in another creator, bringing in shooters, allowing Paolo and Franz to have more space to operate would really do wonders for their efficiency and for the offense as a whole. There are some pretty knee-jerk reactionary takes that I've been seeing across Magic social media.
Stupid.
Just really awful takes, in my opinion. We went from Franz Wagner, Paolo, and Jalen Suggs being, the only trio 22 and under since James Harden, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook a couple of nights ago, that big game in Orlando, to now apparently Franz Wagner is relegated to a third option in perpetuity, and some people are even throwing out that we maybe should look to find what we can get for Franz Wagner. With all due respect, shut the hell up. I understand that it was an awful performance. Franz Wagner didn't single-handedly lose us this game. Jalen Suggs was 2 of 13. J.I. 1 of 2. Mo 1 of 2. You didn't get enough offense like all around. Like as good as Paolo was in this game, and he was incredible in the first half. Like the first half was an incredible playoff game stat line by itself. He had 24, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, a block, was 6 of 13, 2 of 4 from behind the arc, 10 of 10 at the free throw line, all in the first half. As good as Paolo was in that first half, second half, Paolo, 14 points, 4 of 15 from the floor, 26% from the floor, 5 of 8 at the free throw line. Paolo wasn't good enough offensively in that second half. And I do think that has to do with the fact that Jalen Suggs was 1 of 6. Wendell was 2 of 5. Like, just go down the list here. We didn't get enough offensive production, from the bench, from other guys in the starting unit. So, yeah, as bad as Franz was, like, if Jalen Suggs has a game like he has in Orlando, you win this game. I felt like Wendell could sort of sense that we didn't have a ton of offense and was forcing things that time. Now he ends up with 13.7 rebounds, 5 of 10 from the floor. Yes, Franz has a good game. You win this game, most likely. But I'm not going to look at what he's done the last 3 seasons, what he did all throughout the regular season, and what he did at home in these games, and come away thinking anything other than this is these guys' first playoff experience. It was a massive adjustment. Cleveland was a difficult matchup for this team. Everybody would agree with that. Let's just chill with the Franz hot takes. Dude had a bad game.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly had bad playoff games on the road. I wouldn't say that he had a bad series because he was so good, during the home games. But like those takes, like going from 0 to 100, the like reaction, takes on Franz Wagner have just really been ridiculous.
I think your takes on Franz Wagner, whatever they were coming into the series, is what they still should be right now. So for me, it's not ridiculous to say like Franz is a third option. Like if you had that take coming into the series, that's totally fine, because guess what? I might be right there, like, and that might have been my take, like that he's the second, borderline third option probably on a contender in the 4 or 5 years from now. I don't have a problem with that take. I do have a problem with people saying like, oh, let's just test the market. Franz Wagner's market is alive and well in terms of that return would be ridiculous. You could yield a good return for Franz Wagner. But that doesn't mean you should trade him. And it also means like, hey, Franz Wagner is a valuable asset. Don't be stupid.
If Jeff Weltman called any GM around the league, almost any GM around the league, and said, hey, we want to send Franz Wagner here, they'd say, name your price. And then they would make the trade, hang up the phone, and they would be laughing maniacally of how big of an idiot the Orlando Magic front office is.
Yeah. Zero question. So, just whatever. Y'all can,
The reason that I find the third option take ridiculous is because 99.9% of the fan base was not expressing that opinion at any point during this season. And to me, it's clearly a reaction to him having a 1 of 15 Game 7, which I believe is like the lowest field goal percentage for any player with 10 plus attempts in a Game 7, which on its face like absolutely looks terrible. But and another thing that people are taking issue with is this narrative that like, oh, hey, like we didn't expect to be here. And I'm like, but we didn't expect us to be here, right? Like we're some of the most optimistic Magic fans there are. And you said 42 wins, I said 43 wins, and we said, hey, let's make the play-in. And that's a successful season. And we won 47 games. We were the 5th seed by 1 game, and we took Donovan Mitchell and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were the 3 seed last year. We took them to 7 games in the first round of the NBA playoffs. When I say nobody expected us to be here, I'm trying to pay this team like the ultimate compliment. That they have done such a great job of pulling together and outperforming their expectations this year, that, like, yeah, the fact that they fell short in a game 7, I'm not going to sit here and beat up any one of these guys.
Do we want to take a quick break here, Jonathan, for Patreon and all of that? And then I have comments on the other side of the break.
Yeah, so a big shout out to our patrons. Literally help make each and every episode possible. All of the watch parties, everything that we do. We would not be able to do this without you folks and without your support. We do have a couple of new patrons that joined the family. Shout out to Derek Smith and Jay Enrile, who joined at our Hall of Fame and Elite tiers, respectively. If you would like to join the Patreon, now we're getting ready to head into the off season here. But if you would like to help join the Patreon, help support the Six Man Show, help us going into next season, you can find us at patreon.com/the Six Man Show. As always, we shout out our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons each and every episode. Let's go ahead and start with the Court Cousins. Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Tulo, Ellis, Jonathan Borges, Normal Magic Player History, Gabe Gaines, Wiffle, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, Donkey Punch, Dave, Paolo and Francis Warmth, Pierre A, Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Danimal, Bobby Skinner, Goody93, Teddy Sylvia, Eric Lopez, Fuchsia, Bill Fulton, Edmund Lagone, Jose Esquilin, Caleb Pete, Candleism, Time, Mr. TV, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95, Shred, Junior Bruce, Halfreakin, Shahan 177, Bobby the Don, Himlo Ben Himro, RM Prov 221, Ray Pastrana, Magic Kid 714, Mysterious Mosley, Victor Cologne, Irish Magic Mike, Austin Lampy, Random Hustle, Only Franz, Maria, Keith Wallace. Shout out to Keith Wallace. Keith Wallace said what's up to us. Game 6 in the team shop. Told me his name, and it just did not click in that moment that he's one of our elite tier patrons. So Keith Wallace, number one, thanks for saying what's up. I really apologize that I didn't put 2 and 2 together in the moment, but it was really nice to meet you. Fritz, Brub Sal, Case and Green, Santi Leon, Kane Eckler, The Distracted Mod Simpson, Chansu, Tom Gatson, Dead Air, Richard Tuttle, Jeremiah Quintero, Magic Wire, Debo 1980, Magic Matt, Michael Thompson, Mama Richmond, Next Snapple, What's Up Playoffs 2024. Probably got to change that name there. What's Up? Dylan Fay, Sammy, David Duffy, Smith Sheiks, Bueno Time, Stantino 1995, Suggs Muggs, Derek Smith, Jay Enrile. A big shout out to our patrons again all season long. Thank you guys for the support. And if you would like to join the Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/the Six Man Show.
And if you guys would like to have the best hot chicken in Florida, maybe the country, maybe the world, you guys can go to 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square, to Jam Hot Chicken, LA and Nashville inspired hot chicken shack, locally owned and operated in beautiful Winter Park. Great outdoor seating. You guys can go online even to jamhotchickenfl.com, access the menu for online ordering, playlists that they have, all of those sort of things. And you can go to their, all their social media is at Jam Hot Chicken. So go check them out. Let them know we sent you. I had some the other day. We did as a collective unit there before that beautiful Game 6 in Orlando. And it hit the same as always. Incredible. Jonathan had their limited time fish sandwich. So said it was the best fish sandwich he's ever had. Y'all go check it out.
I'm a big fish sandwich guy. Like anytime, obviously, like I go to McDonald's, I'm getting a fillet of fish. Or when Wendy's does theirs, Burger King had one a few weeks ago. Arby's had one a couple of months ago. So like I am a fish sandwich guy. And I think it was Grouper, if I'm not mistaken, that Andrew and the team over at Jam did. And yeah, it was the best one I've ever had.
Yeah, so go check them out. Let them know we sent you. Great people over there, huge Magic fans, and we're as locked in as we were to this playoff series and this whole season as a whole. So shout out to them. Now, like I said, Jonathan, on the other side of the break, I just had a comment about the series. The Cleveland Cavaliers got embarrassed last year by the New York Knicks. The physicality was clearly too much. Just the grit and the hustle that embodies like that culture of New York, which, by the way, I venture to say that like New York's basketball team, like their culture is what the Heat think that they are. Like the Knicks are just a gritty team that'll just take your soul from you in a series, and they did just that to Cleveland. And Cleveland came into these playoffs wanting to make quick work of the Orlando Magic to show the rest of the league, hey, we're not chumps. We're not getting beat in 5, and this isn't the New York Knicks. I saw a ton of comments on Twitter because Cavs Twitter collectively was losing their mind, calling for JB Bickerstaff's head, all these kinds of things, maybe rightfully so, obviously. But the comments that they were making was like, I thought the Knicks were physical, but this Magic team is even more physical. And that can be debated, right? That was a tough team. This Magic team is a tough team in those regards. But the Cavs had motivation. And the Magic didn't care because the Magic had a chip on their shoulder this entire series. We're young. Nobody really expects us to win this series if they're being honest with themselves. And we're here to take care of business. You tweeted it today when you tweeted out the game day graphic. You were like, they wanted us and they got us. And they got all that they could handle. I promise you, they're so happy that series is over. But if I'm being quite honest, this next game against Boston, I do think Boston puts them to bed pretty quickly. 5 games, I could see a sweep. But there is part of me that's like, I would just love the Cavs to take them the distance. Take them to 7. Just so we can kind of puff our chests out a little bit and say, we took we took them to 7. And then they barely lost to the Boston Celtics. That would be awesome. I don't think it happens. But just on an aside, I would love that. But yeah, so Cleveland had a lot to prove, and I just am so proud of this team, this Magic team, for answering the call and doing what they did in this series. They showed a lot of grit and got a lot of love from people everywhere. Yeah, you had people that were like, oh, Cleveland's they just shrink in the playoffs and blah, 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 blah. There are still people out there that were giving the Magic flowers, and to them, thank you. That was an incredible playoff series. I am also very bummed at this. After Donovan Mitchell, every time he lost in Orlando and they asked him questions, he would say, after they lost game 4 and then after they lost game 6, hey, we've handled business at home. We're just going to go back home and do that. Like, that's how he would get out of answers to questions on some of those press conferences. And I just so badly wanted this to be the game that, like, you didn't take care of business at home as kind of a gotcha for Donovan Mitchell. That's just as an aside, but that really irritated me. Like, he always in those press conferences, like the last one, he's like, credit to the Magic. They're a great team. And then he'd bring up free throw discrepancy. Someone would ask him a question on the Magic. He'd be like, oh, well, we just got to go back home and take care of business, like we have been all series. And it's like, whatever, man. I think he's an incredible player. Watched him drop 50 points live. But yeah, I was ready for him to lose this series, to be honest with you. That's the beauty of playoff basketball too. Did you find yourself growing like a little bit of more irritation for the Cavs team in general this series, or have you not really thought about it?
What do you think?
I mean, yeah, probably you're a passionate person.
I can't watch regular season games and watch a guy that I thought that I liked, and then when I watched them over the course of a game, complain to the referees. And I'm not even talking about Donovan Mitchell here. I'm talking about different guys around the league, and watch them complain to refs and just like berate officials in the way that if a Magic player were to do that, they would be tossed from a game immediately.
Right.
And within like 15 minutes of watching guys, I'm like, oh, I like this guy. Well, now I just hate him because that's just what it is in sports. Like, sure, you're playing another team, you're fun to watch. You're playing my team and you're acting like an idiot. Well, now I hate you. That all happened for me in like game 1 with Donovan Mitchell, hitting the too small and talking to the crowd in Cleveland, and Darius Garland, the stuff with Suggs, and then he hit a couple of shots today, and now he's talking trash and smiling and all that kind of stuff. Obviously with George Niang and Max Strus, who I've hated for a long time because he's played for the Miami Heat. So yeah, like this entire team I don't particularly care for, if I'm being honest. But to me, like, that's how it should be. Like, that's what makes playoff basketball fun. There was an exchange today with Max Strus and one of our players. Yeah. I forget who it was. But I turned to my father-in-law. I was like, I love this. He's like, you love what? I was like, how these guys are pushing and shoving and talking trash to each other. Like, the competitive fires coming out. Like, that is what makes playoff basketball the best. And I would venture to guess that out of most of the first round playoff matchups, like player for player, this was one of the most chippy series of the first round. Like every guy on our team like sort of had a moment with the other team where it got a little bit intense. And to me, I know our guys love that and relish that. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, like the stuff with Donovan Mitchell throughout this series has definitely gotten old. I think because they have the star power in Donovan Mitchell and they have the all-star in Darius Garland, and they were the 3 seed last year and lost to New York in 5, and they had expectations coming into the season, and there's been the narrative around Donovan Mitchell and is he going to sign the extension and all that kind of stuff. I understand why the national media might find those narratives a bit more interesting than just talking about the young upstart Orlando Magic. But it was frustrating for me throughout this series, especially when the Magic blew out Cleveland in games 3 and game 4, that the narrative around the national media was not, wow, look at the Magic took care of business at home. It was, what's wrong with Cleveland? And after game 6, it was, what's wrong with Cleveland? And is Cleveland going to be able to pull it off? And this is what's going wrong with Cleveland, more so than like, hey, this is what the Magic are doing right. So for me, throughout the series, that was a little bit annoying. But what I will say, next season, nobody's going to be looking at those standings the last week of the season and saying, hey, we want the Magic. Because they're going to look back at this series, and obviously we expect the Magic to be improved next season. Nobody's going to be doing that. And I'm really looking forward to, like, these guys are going to think about this game and this series all summer long, and they're going to be thinking about it all regular season long. And when you have a game against Charlotte at the end of the year where you still have the 2 seed in sight, if you're able to take care of business the last couple of weeks of the season, the Magic are going to remember, like, hey, remember last year when we didn't do that and we fell all the way to 5 and lost home court advantage, and we probably lost that first round matchup because we didn't have home court advantage. Not only is this experience going to help these guys the next time they're in a playoff series, but they're going to recognize like how much those regular season games matter. And I think we're going to see a really motivated and improved Magic team right out of the gate next season. And I'm really looking forward to that.
No doubt. Yeah, agree.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't know how much there is more to say about this series. Really proud of the way that the Magic just put on for the city. They played really well at home. They didn't lose a home game in this series. Like much of the regular season, the issues for the Magic came on the road. So yeah, just really proud of the way that the Magic played in this series and put on for the city. Not losing a game at home in this series, like the Magic struggled on the road all year, ended up struggling on the road here in the playoffs. Things that they've got to learn and take into next year. And now we're off to the off season. The Magic know, we talked about this. They know what they have to address. You've got to get another creator in the offense. Hopefully you can do that without sacrificing too much defense. Have to add some shooting. And I'm excited to see guys like Paolo, especially Franz. He's going to have a bad taste in his mouth all summer long. Going into the Olympics, we'll see how Germany looks. And Jalen Suggs and shout out to Cole Anthony who stepped up in a big way the last couple of games, especially in game 6. He seems like he just had a lot going on personally. We don't know the details of that, but I think that has taken effect on Cole the last couple of months here. So yeah, Luke, it sucks that the series ended this way, but this should be as bad as we are for quite a while if things go right.
A lot of dreaming to be done in this offseason, free agent signings, what that will look like. But that doesn't take away from this roster. That, like you said, it'll look different next year. Would have loved to win a playoff series with this team, man. But is what it is. We'll be back next year. New look Magic coming your way. I don't expect it to be too crazy, but it will look different. So we'll see what that is. See what the front office cooks up. But yeah, man, great heart. from this Magic team in this series, and not enough can be said about how awesome and impressive they were.
Yeah, we want to take the opportunity really to just react to this Game 7 and talk a little bit about our feelings on the series. The next episode that we're going to have, which will come out Thursday, we're going to talk about the season sort of in its entirety. I'm sure we'll have a lot of references to this Game 7 and to this playoff series for sure. So we're going to have an episode Thursday that's going to help recap the season. And then myself, Luke, and Kevin, we're going to take some much deserved and much earned time off. Not too long, probably about a week to 10 days, something like that, just to catch our breath. It's been a crazy season, obviously with the addition of the playoffs, which we welcome, but all of the extra events and extra content that we put out this season, as you can imagine, over the course of 6+ months, that takes a toll. So we'll have another episode Thursday, then we'll take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back, get ready for the off season, draft, free agency, all that kind of stuff.
Do we know how many episodes we did this year, by the way? You talk about like how much we did and all that kind of stuff. I know that this one will be episode, I don't even know, 3 something.
No, this is going to be 417.
417. 416 was 4 days ago.
No, 417 was Game 6. So that doesn't show because that was a PGL sort of hybrid, but it's close to 100. So I know 300 was like the end of last year. Like I think it was right after the regular season, if I'm not mistaken. So like 115, somewhere in there over the course of the last year.
Yeah, there's just a lot of ground covered, and like you said, much needed. You could argue much deserved. No, you couldn't, but much needed time off that we'll get, and look forward to kind of talking about the season as a whole on that next episode, and then who knows. Maybe
it's roughly about 60 episodes that we did this season. So since the start of the regular
PGLs
season.
Kev did and all that fun stuff. Six Fan Show,
which Kev did like 92 or something.
He's a
like
maniac.
That.
Shout out to Kevin again. We tried to shout out Kev quite a bit when it comes to those, because those are no small feat. And he was pretty much available for almost every post game live. It was ridiculous how much you and I didn't have to fill in for those. So shout out to him. We hope that you guys enjoyed the content that we brought to you guys this season, from that to our normal stuff to Six Fan Show.
Which there's a new one up right now, by the way.
There's a new Six Fan Show up right now. Go watch
the final one of the season.
There was hugs and embraces that happened in that, and enough to make a grown man cry. So go check it out.
Did you get emotional at all after this game today? I did, filming the post game hit. Because I did that like immediately after the game ended, and seeing Jalen, the way that he reacted, all of those emotions were pretty fresh in me. I teared up a little.
No, I mean the closest for me was just a couple minutes ago when I talked about like this is the roster. Like I would have wished, I'm doing it right now, I wish we would have won a round with this team. And I'm talking quickly so I don't get choked up at all. But that's the closest that has come. So. Man, I love this team, man.
Yeah, sucks that it ended this way, but ultimately, I hope everybody just comes away from this episode and this season just feeling really positive about everything that we saw, the way that these guys performed, the good, the bad. The future is brighter than ever, and let's come back next year, do it again, improve the roster a little bit, and success isn't linear. Our friend Kobe Price said that once on one of our podcast episodes, that success is not always linear. You don't always go straight up. Sometimes you go up, come back down a little bit before you continue onward and upward. So let's keep that in mind going into next season. But like you alluded to earlier in the episode, Luke, what's going to make next season so different from this season is a lot of that innocence and the good vibes aren't going to be quite the same, and a little bit of that is going to be replaced by pressure and expectations. And I know these guys are up to the challenge, but before you move on to next season, just take a little bit of time to sit and reflect on that and how special this season was, because we may never see another season quite like what we saw this year. There's a special group that really cares for one another, and just all the circumstances combined, this is probably going to go down as a pretty unique and special Magic team that we had here this year. So hope you guys appreciate the way that we did. And I hope that you all appreciated the show this year the way that we appreciated you all and your support. It's been a lot of fun. And we'll have another episode, like I said, on Thursday. Then we'll take a little bit of a breather, and then we'll get right back to the grind into the off season and all the ongoings of NBA off season. NBA never stops. Year-round league news cycle, all that kind of stuff. So, Luke, I think we're gonna wrap this one up unless you have anything else.
Oh, go Magic.
Yep, go Magic. All right, that's gonna do it for this one. For Luke Sylvia, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!